Welcome to the To the Moon podcast. Being your host here, as always, Josh Lander, coming to you from the West Coast. And today I'm going to have another buddy of mine who's big in the NFT world. His name's Matt Ashlock, a young guy who's, I think, a really good addition to the show. Get some of his perspective as someone who is actually really big into collecting these things. He's also really big into the NFT world in general, as well as cryptocurrency, etc. And he's also, someone who used to collect physical cards and still does sort of collect physical items such as trading cards, Pokemon cards are in there, and then definitely some, sports trading cards. So looking forward to getting some of his perspective on this stuff and, just a little bit of a rundown. We're going to be really getting into the active current marketplace and some of the sort of Dapper Labs moves that have been made that have really changed the marketplace environment and really, what is value, how valuable things are. There's a ton of people coming in right now while they're also adding new cards at this point and adding new challenges. So I'd like to talk to Matt, look a little bit at some cards that have been affected by newer cards coming in with larger, addition counts as well as circulating counts, meaning they could still and likely still will make more of these cards that are around 35,000 of them made. And how is that affecting prior packs that have an addition count of maybe 15,000? And then, as I mentioned, the challenges. How is that affecting the value of cards? It seems to be fluctuating depending on what the reward for the challenge is and how valued is that card expected to be. There sort of seems to be this common understanding that if the card, the value of the total value of the cards that it would cost to complete the challenge is more than what you think the value of that reward card will be, then you shouldn't be going for that challenge. So I'm going to get Matt in here to talk about some of that stuff with me and take a look at, like I said, not only what has been happening and the effect that continues to have, but what else maybe we can expect Dapper to do. It's hard to predict, but we can try to figure some stuff out based on what they've done already. Matt, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to have you. I introduced you as someone who is good to have on this podcast because you actually also really like the collecting aspect
This is
of
true.
what we're doing here, right? So, give me a little bit of your background with Top Shot in general, and then maybe anything relevant to NFT and your love of crypto, etc.
Oh boy, where do I start there? So I've been starting. I think during quarantine, I had some money, and I was like, what do I do with this? And then my friend was like, "Have you heard about Bitcoin?" And then I got really into crypto from there. So then fast forward, and it's January. It's January, and I see a promoted tweet because my Twitter knows that I love basketball, and my Twitter knows that I love crypto. And so someone must have had a promoted tweet to those two audiences, and I think it was Roham. I think it was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about Top Shot. I was like, "What's Top Shot?" I was like, "What is this? This is digital basketball collectibles." Oh, and I was sold as soon as I saw it. I'm like, I don't know how this works yet, but I'm going to learn it, and I'm so in because I am huge on trading cards, huge on crypto, and this is like the next step. This is the
Yeah.
crossroads of those. So
Yep.
I
100%.
dream of a future where 10 years from now I'm like, hey kids, look at my my 10-year-old Top Shot in my digital wallet, and they're like, whoa, LeBron James. That's the romantic future I see of the trading, where it's I'm not exactly looking to make a quick buck, but I also am looking to make some money to then get some more cards. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a reinvesting thing, and so the whole thing is just a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I'll say I was the exact. My response was the exact same, which is I don't fully know what this is yet, but I'm in. And I think you actually said a couple of things there in your intro that are really synonymous with exactly how I introduced you. I was saying that one, you are someone who's good, who you like the collectible aspect of it. Two, you've actually made pretty good money when you look at the ROI plus the cards that you've actually
Mm-hmm.
sold and been able to see actual value. I know you've withdrawn
Mm-hmm.
actual money from your Dapper account as one of the I don't know what number we're up to now, maybe
Yeah.
30,000 more people that can, that can do that. And so, that's something that is going to be enticing for people to want to hear what you have to say is, well, how did you do that? And the third thing real quick, just as an overview is, you have a plan for what you're going
Mm-hmm.
to do. And you hit another nuance that I brought up earlier before you got on that's true, which is you have a plan for these cards and you're looking to put these cards into valuable
Mm-hmm.
cards. The money that you make off of other cards, you're looking to, park that back into the marketplace and in the value in your collection. But you're doing it for cards that you really, really, really want,
Exactly.
specifically as a Warriors fan.
Hmm.
Right. So just talk a little bit about that aspect of the collecting and how, it's something that you're not, yes, there's nostalgia, but you aren't just doing it wildly. Right.
Exactly. So the ideal strategy, I guess, for Top Shot for me, and I'm sure for many others, is they want to get good cards that they like. They also want to get cards that they can sell, and then you can flip that into another card. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I not? What do I feel comfortable not selling? Because if I start to see someone I don't care about, or someone whatever, like that card starts to drop, and like so DeMar DeRozan, say I have a DeMar DeRozan card, and I'm like, well, that's great, but I don't know if I want to care about DeMar DeRozan in 5, 10 years. So those kind of cards I will flip, and if I flip enough DeMars, I flip enough Kyle Lowry's, now I can buy a Steph Curry, and I'm not going to sell a Steph Curry because I'm a huge Warriors fan, and most
Right.
of my collection right now is honestly made up of Warrior cards. And like, because those are the ones I have, certain cards like these are the ones I'm going to hold, and certain cards that I'm
Hmm.
like I'm going to monitor the market, and if these,
Yep.
and I could sell these. And some I actually recently started. I just flipped like a couple other cards into the Steph Curry card. Now I'm like, all right, perfect. I'm going to hold on to this for. It could drop right now, and that would
Yep.
suck. But in the long term, I'm not buying it to sell it when it drops $600. I'm going to sell it when
But
it's thousands of dollars.
100%. That would be when you have that level of connection to a card. You're not selling that thing until
Exactly.
you've made good money off it, right? And
Exactly.
and conversely, if you don't have that sort of that the card doesn't have that intrinsic value to you, then you're willing to flip it, right? Now, that's what I want to hone in on for one sec, which is maybe even have an example of, let's say, even if it's a hypothetical, you have DeMar DeRozan, you have three of them. It's a 15,000 limited edition count
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan. What's an example of what, are you willing to take a loss on a DeMar DeRozan so you can sell it, so you can park it somewhere else? Or are you making sure that you never take a loss, in terms of selling it for less than you bought it for? Is there any sort of thought process there?
I'm always praying to not sell on a loss, but then my strategies change, and I'm like, well, if I could, if I take a small hit here, it'll be beneficial later. So I'd like to not take losses, but I'm generally okay with it to a certain extent if it fits my long term plan. If it was a
Mhm.
short term plan and then suddenly I'm out a couple $100 and I'm like, well, that just didn't work because that's how
That was dumb.
it's happened. It's going to happen to everyone, and you're going to think,
Totally.
oh, I killed this and nailed this trade. Oh, wait, why is it? Oh, it's dropped, and then you feel bad. But that's going
Totally.
to happen to everyone, and so it's all about minimizing that while maximizing as much of my long term. Because I don't want to be selling the big ones. I want to be selling small ones, and every once in a while, if I have enough small ones, that mixed with one big one, now I get a LeBron thing. So
Right.
but
Right. And that's where, once you start talking about, establishing that you need to be actually listing cards, you need to
yeah.
be making money off cards you own. It's nice to have a big collection, and that's great. But what's the ROI on that total collection, and how are those cards doing? And if you're just going to continue to see cards, as we've seen recently, drop when they continue to inject new cards into the marketplace, we need to establish that, listing cards, selling them, and flipping them, however you want to phrase
Mhm.
it, it's necessary to be able to then find value. It had the funds to then buy cards that you see that you really want, because either you find value in them or you see potential growth in those cards, right?
Mhm.
And we can sort of surmise what the value of cards is and will be. It's still hard to really understand how highly people value serial number versus
Mhm.
obviously the amount of the edition size is going to be huge, and if it's limited or not. But outside of scarcity, and then serial number within the edition, and obviously who the player is,
Yes.
it's kind of hard to sort of figure out, well, if this guy's hurt, does that really hurt his value? And then when he comes back, the value goes up. I don't know if
Yeah,
those
I
types of
didn't I
moves
didn't
are able to
understand
play
that
yet.
when with Lamelo when that because if you're that high on a Lamelo card like people seem to be, Lamelo's still gonna have a great career even if he doesn't win Rookie of the Year. So I was actually surprised when I heard that news and I logged on and all these Lamelo cards were
What was the
dropping.
news you're talking about there?
When Lamelo fractured his wrist, yeah. So he
And then what
fractured
happened?
he fractured his wrist, and then I logged on and first of all, Anthony Edwards cards were skyrocketing, which was great because I had one.
Mm,
But Lamelo cards were like dropping from I think it was at 5,000 a while ago, and now it was like 2-1 or something. I should fact check
yeah.
that. But
So to clarify real quick, like what we're saying here is, one, Lamelo Ball gets hurt.
yeah,
He's on pace for Rookie of the Year, and he turned the Charlotte Hornets around, about to make the playoffs because of him. And then he gets hurt, and the
don't be
value of his card
disrespecting Scary
drops.
Terry like that.
Sorry, but the value of his cards dropped. There was a difference between when they started winning before, and it wasn't Scary Terry making started the lineup. But at any rate, right, that happens. Then the next step in the effect of LaMelo dropping because he's not likely to win Rookie of the Year when he can't put up any more stats this year is that the guy who was sort of in second place for Rookie of the Year's cards went higher in value, Anthony Edwards,
Mm-hmm.
because of that expectation that now people seem to be valuing when a player is going to win an award. That seems to be a prediction people are making, and that is probably based on badges being ascribed to different cards, which is something we'll probably get into at a later episode. But right, this is sort of the basketball game theory that we can actually start to put a little bit of emphasis on it, right? Dependency on.
I mean, Andrew Wiggins won Rookie of the Year. Michael Carter Williams won Rookie of the Year. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
Sometimes that moniker doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to be the superstar. I think we've seen enough from
right.
LaMelo to justify whatever he was going for. Well, I guess like just how he's handled being on the Hornets so far and how great he's made them. But
Right.
besides the
But you're
scarcity,
talking about long-term value there, right? That's why you would do
exactly.
that.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But I don't understand why. I just don't get why that necessarily would drop his price. I don't, because he's still a great player. I didn't know Rookie of the Year was as coveted of a badge as people seem to make it be. I
Or
guess it's just
or
it's just another one of
there's
those things that's outside of being a player or the scarcity. I guess is kind of like looking for like those really cool plays, and I guess Lamelo. I don't know where I was going with that thought process, but
no. I think to the point there to help you finish it
let
is,
me finish it.
you know, the sort of unpredictable aspect of the market's
Yes.
going to market,
Yeah.
and all it takes is everybody being concerned that LaMelo's price might
It's
drop,
just the
and then you
news.
start flipping before that happens.
Yeah.
And not realizing that you just actually incited the action that you were scared of
It's
happening,
true.
right? And then same concept for Anthony Edwards. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, his price is going to go up because he's going to win Rookie of the Year." And it's like maybe, but like maybe there's going to be 3 more Anthony Edwards cards that come into the market,
That's something I want to talk
and
to you
there's not
about.
going to
Yeah.
be any more LaMelo Ball. So then that could just shift everything back as well, right?
Hmm.
So I think to give like to put a little bit of a bow on this part of what we're talking about, I think it's safe to say that for now, you should feel good about coming in and flipping cards that are $20,
Yep.
$30, $50, $60, $100.
Hmm.
Flip those. If you made 5, 10, $20 off of it, that's a W.
Hmm.
Don't be too worried about it, because what we've seen is that at one point, I'll say I was a little bit scared of flipping anything because I was like, more people are just going to come in, everything's just going to keep skyrocketing. And then they injected a
And
ton
they
more in
did. Yeah.
with a higher circulation count. They made more challenges that made a bunch of more impacted other cards in ways we couldn't predict. So really, what I'm getting at is that's you don't need to worry about if I sell. Don't have that buyer's regret. If you make a profit off of it,
It's
that's
a
money you
W.
didn't have before you had that card. So
Exactly.
get that money, and when you have that money and you secure the bag, then you have a plan already in place for what you're doing with that bag. Where am I parking that next? Or am I taking that out because I need a couple grand for XYZ? But you have
Exactly.
a plan for what you're doing for that, right? And then you park it wherever you want to park that money.
If anyone in the world's going to have a trade that they wish they did or they wish they didn't make, and it's going to happen no matter what. So if you came out in the green, came out in the positive, it's a W. So,
100%.
but as
And you'll take minor losses if you have a good reason to get
exactly
money.
if it fits the long term vision, minor losses are fine. You mentioned challenges and stuff, and that was a good point because I almost I guess a big point is it a question I want to ask you is how worth it is it to complete certain challenges, and what like are the factors that make it worth it or not? Because I've seen some that
Yeah,
are like it was definitely worth it to sell it while it was high because then right before
yeah.
it drops that reward card you could have sold for quadruple what the reward card was worth. So what do you think about those reward cards?
So what I'm finding about challenges, because I did this Seeing Stars challenge, and I'll be totally blunt about it, right? So I did this Seeing Stars challenge, and that came out right at a time where things were still in terms of the marketplace, availability, and the amount of cards that you could buy or
Mm-hmm.
list at one time. That was still just the Wild West, and so I was trying to get these Seeing Stars cards as soon as they came out to complete the challenge to get the KD reward. And I still had 2 options at the time, which was if these challenge cards go up because the closer to the deadline
Mm-hmm.
of the challenge ending, I'm down to flip them and make a couple $100 off each card,
Mm-hmm.
adding up to maybe a couple grand in profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm down to, if that doesn't happen, but they stay around the price that I bought them, then I'm down to get that KD card, which is, let's say, a couple grand right there just off the bat. Already, that's more return on investment for the buying all 11 Seeing Stars
Exactly.
cards, right? What's happened is, and it's still a good plan. And just for the record, the cards have not gone up in value. They've varied slightly, but they're hovering right around what I bought them. If anything, slightly less now. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about that in one sec. And as a result, I'm like, well, this KD is now my saving grace to get my ROI on these cards at the very least back to even, if not probably over a good amount.
Yeah.
Right. So I have no real love for that KD card. I do think he's an amazing player, and I do have a couple KDs, and I love him. But I need that money.
But
That's
you factor in, how many more KD highlights there are going to be this season because he's injured. What if the Nets win the title this season? How many of those people are going to complete the challenge? How many are going to think like you when it skyrockets and be like, oh, I'll sell, versus how many people are going to actually complete that challenge? Because
100%.
before that ESPN and Bleacher Report, there were articles about it, and the the user base just skyrocketed. Before that, there was challenges, and there was a Luca one, and then that one was like, I don't know, like 3,000 or less completed that. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was one. But then the Anthony Davis Cool Cats one, which was the next, had like 7 or 8,000. And that one was
Mm-hmm.
$400 versus Luca, which was like
Yeah.
3,000. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I have horror like stories from that Luca thing, because now I'm like, I'm worried that every time that challenge card is going to go way up. But then, like you said, like right towards the end of it, people are going to start selling it off.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at that Seeing Stars challenge. I'm going to monitor those prices right before that deadline checks out. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
drop low enough, and that KD might be worth it. But it's
Yeah.
those kind of things that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes when you don't do it, and sometimes you have to just
Yeah.
do it, because you'll regret it if you don't.
Now once you're pot committed, you're in, and that's totally true. And it's fine because I'm pot committed, but I know that no matter what happens at the end of this hand, I'm going to get a KD card.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's fine. And that's, like I said, going to cover me. The thing that I think is a takeaway from the challenges, it's the same concept as owning any card right now, which is they've been putting a ton of cards into the marketplace. They've been doing a ton of challenges. It's like, oh, it's AllStar. So there's 3 different challenges around AllStar with a ton of, different sort of little aspects to it of cards that you need and whatever. And it's, but the effect of putting, a bunch of new cards in of base set series 2 with 35,000 editions of a ton more players, including guys like Zion, Steph, right, like Ja, and then all the rest of these guys, Harden, Durant, all these guys. What happens is like and even LeBron now. Everybody wants a LeBron. I don't care if it's a LeBron where he's picking his nose and untying his shoe. I want a LeBron way more than I want damn near anybody, right?
And they're going to know that, and they're going to make more LeBron cards.
What that's going to do is going to really dick those of us who have those really expensive LeBron cards, because everyone just wants LeBron. So the value's sucked out of the 15,000 LE LeBron card and injected into the $100 one, because everybody can at least afford a LeBron in that sense.
In that case, if I had I have the LeBron turnaround 3, and that's one that I'm comfortable holding, because how many times has LeBron shot a 3 and turned around? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like if I just drew a LeBron assist or a LeBron dunk, I'd probably look to flip it, because Lord knows they're going to pump out 2 or 3 more LeBron James cards that will probably add an overall market cap to his name, but it will dilute that price within all the other cards. And so, but if you're a huge LeBron fan, you won't care. But for me, I mean, I'm, because it's that turnaround 3, I'm like, I think that, and it's only 15,000. Like if it was 35,000, I'd be like, because when you really think about it, it's supply and demand, and 35,000 ish Smith passes. I'm like, what's the real value there in 15 years? Like
when are you ever going to find value in it?
Exactly. Ever. So 100%. It's the 35,000, unless it's like a really big name. It's hard, man.
100%. And I think it's fine to buy those 35,000s and flip them here and there. As soon as you see that you can list it at the lowest ask for $10 more than you bought that Ish Smith, do it. And it might happen rarely, but when it happens, do it. And, the other main takeaway I want to, present to everyone that we're talking about here before we kind of wrap things up is, if you are going to buy a card for $1,000 or $2,000 or more, that's not something you're flipping. That's something that you're holding on
It's
to,
an
or you really, really
investment.
want, or both.
Yeah,
100%. And that's fine. And keep that investment and make it and watch it grow. And if you find a good time to flip that, do it. If it continues to drop, you have a card that you want. And if it, it's still hopefully gonna retain value enough that the loss on it is not that bad. If you
hmm
once again have a plan for a reason to sell it. So we're kind of saying the same thing here, but I really appreciate sort of the angle of I do want this card,
I
and
do.
so that's why it's good to have you on here. Any sort of parting thoughts about any of the sort of challenges or anything that you're looking at right now? I know you recently made a purchase for a Steph Curry. That was the All-Star card. That was a pretty nice play, right? The turnaround there, and you also bought an Andrew Bogut highlight pass to Steph Curry that was in the playoffs from season one.
I'm
Both
much
expensive
yeah.
plays, but it's something that you wanted, and now you have it.
I I was more proud of the Bogut one because I still to this day, and it's people can look it up if they want. It's the Run It Back series, Andrew Bogut. I still think it's so undervalued because you look at this play. It's the only plays from 2013. They have no past play, and I think they've said in the past that they might revisit doing even older ones. But as of right
Yeah,
now, it's the only one from the past.
yeah,
Um, it's the only Andrew Bogut card, so Australia would love that card.
yeah,
But the best part is it's a behind the back pass to the greatest shooter on earth, Steph Curry. And I don't think that's being factored in the price because every other card, there's like a $2,000 card. I gotta look it up now. There's like a card that's like $2,000 that's like a nobody, and there's Andrew Bogut behind the back to Steph. So I saw
yeah,
that, and I was
yeah,
like, I didn't actually have the money at the time to get it because it was like 2K at the time, and I was like, I don't have that money, but
yeah.
I had some big
Some
whopper
cards.
cards that had grown from my January purchases that I was like, okay, what would I rather have in 10 years? Would I rather
Yeah,
have these four players that are good, or would I rather have an Andrew Bogut behind the back pass to Steph? And to
totally.
top it all off, there was only 275 of them. And so
Yeah,
I'm always interested in consolidating into a smaller scarcity because I think that's the best play in the
100%.
long run. And so I was
Yep.
like, behind the back pass to Steph, 275. Let's do it. And so that's one that
Yeah.
it's now dropped a little bit, but there's only
Yep.
24 in the market. So when someone buys,
Totally.
it's so volatile.
Totally.
And I'm just excited to see what that'll be in 5 years. And then the Steph All Star one, I bought that one too using by selling a couple Series One cards, and I drew the LeBron turnaround three, and now I had that Steph All Star three, and I'm like, how cool is it that I have from a collector standpoint, the two top dogs of the 2010, Steph and LeBron, who went at it so much, I have both of them shooting threes and turning around. And it's
Yeah.
how often have they done that in their career? So from a collector
Yeah.
standpoint, I'm like, that's time. And the Steph All Star
100%.
one, just for all the collectors out there, it's the only time Steph and LeBron were ever teammates.
Right.
That's something you got to think of with value. At the end of the
Totally.
highlight, Steph comes in and high fives LeBron. That's the
Totally.
only time it's ever happened in their career. So
For sure. No, it's
those
awesome.
those those little details of like being teammates, those are things I look out for.
And those little details will start to come into play a lot more as we continue to see more people enter the marketplace, and cards are not quite as injected as often.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, especially maybe when there's an off season, we can look to a pause in too many new cards coming in, and mostly just cards going up in value. So we'll see
They
how
could
that
always run challenges that include random base set cards that if you own them,
100%
because that incentivizes
will be
holding cards
deployed.
and not selling them. Because if that
Yep.
happened once, where I had a Will Barton that was worth $2, and then
Yep.
they did a Cool Cats challenge where that was, and it went up to 70. And
I
it's like
remember that
imagine if
one.
you had sold it the day before,
I totally remember that. So awesome, Nashlock. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for nerding out with me on this.
You're
And
people think I'm crazy. You're the only one I get to nerd out to, so it's great.
the only time people think you're crazy is when you say things like "people think I'm crazy." No, but we'll get you back on here soon, man. So I appreciate the time.
All right, thanks for having me on, man.
Cool. So that is all the time that we have for today. I know we had a nice long one. Mashlock loves his little basketball cards, as do I, man. I don't want to belittle it. So we're having some fun with this. And, hopefully you are making some money and having some fun as well. Jump in the comments. Let me know what it is that you're looking forward to, trying to make things, pretty simple for you guys, and keep it to topics that you're going to be able to use the information we give you, intangibly each and every time that you go to the marketplace for Top Shot. So like and subscribe to the video as always, and we'll be back soon with another one as we try to take this thing to the moon.